You are now sitting at the Wavetable.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wavetable, episode 1. On the first episode, I'm joined by amazing psytrance producer, Spiradical. But I know he doesn't only produce psytrance. I've also seen him produce a variety of things when we were studying together. He's a pretty good all-round producer, in my opinion.
Thank you. That's very kind.
So thanks for joining me. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do?
Thanks, man. I'm Indigo. That's my real name. I've been producing progressive psytrance under the alias Spiradical for a year or two now. I went to SAE with Ben and did the music production course, so I've just been now branching out into other genres. I'm making a bit of bass music, a little bit of like sort of down-tempo ambient stuff. I'm really just wanting to get into doing live electronic music soon. That's kind of where I want to move.
Yeah. I remember when we were studying, you used to make like sick neuro basses in Operator, and I was like, I never messed around with Operator. I was only on Serum, and I was like, how the fuck can you make these sick things just in Operator, man? It's crazy.
Operator's one of those ones where you have to spend like 2 hours fucking around to get a good sound, and until you get the good sound, it just sounds terrible. So you just stick with it.
Probably like a lot of post processing. Although I do that with Serum as well, anyway. So
yeah.
So we were studying music production together, and then I went on after like a trimester break to continue with the audio course, and then you later did that as well. Are you still doing that?
Yeah. So obviously with the whole COVID situation, I'm on break at the moment. I'm trying to decide whether or not I'll defer, because if restrictions aren't lifted, it's not really worth paying the money to do an online course. But I'm very keen. I'd love to go back. I'm really enjoying learning sort of more about the non-electronic music approach to sort of recording and mastering and things like that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, like learning about the hardware in traditional audio production and trying to kind of apply that to electronic music with hardware emulations, and trying not to go absolutely overboard with compression and shit.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's almost like a different set of rules to doing a mix down of a non-electronic music track. It's been really good to apply some of the knowledge I've learned from mix engineers that have never touched an Ableton session before to my own practice. And I look at compressors in a totally different light after doing this audio engineering degree. But it's really cool. And I've seen some artists, electronic music producers, like, have you heard of Rival Consoles before? He makes like sort of like ambient electronica. Amazing producer. There was an interview with him where he sort of talks about how he sort of intentionally doesn't overproduce his music. He tries to keep it a little less polished, just to keep sort of some of that soul in there a bit, which is something I'm noticing more with like the sensibilities surrounding mixing live music or like real instruments. It sort of seems there's less of a formula than doing it electronically, I found, or doing it to electronic music.
Yeah, I feel like with traditional mixing, it's pretty much just like if it sounds good, then it is good, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like in EDM, there's like, oh no, you got to have this plugin on it, you got to have that plugin on it. What are you doing if you're not doing this, etc.?
Yeah. Exactly. It feels a lot more surgical. Like even with like EQing and stuff, there's so many resources you find for like EQing electronic music that's just like, definitely cut this thing here and put these cuts here and there and there. And it's, I know a lot of EDM producers that are incredible mix engineers, but it's sort of like there's no actual musicality to it. There's no soul to what they're doing. They're just following these rules really well. But yeah, yeah,
yeah. I see a bunch of those posts on Insta that are like, experiencing this issue, cut at exactly this frequency. It's like you can't just say cut this frequency. Like it's a general frequency range, not one specific thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, how did you get started with producing? Because for me, it was pretty much just like Skrillex and Pendulum.
Oh, nice. Like actually producing. I remember when I was like 16, I think. I went to a Bushdorf and just heard psytrance for the first time.
Oh,
and
really? So that was like your first experience with electronic music?
Oh, not entirely. It was the first electronic music that made me want to make electronic music.
Okay,
I definitely, I was so into Skrillex when I was in high school. I fucking was all about Skrillex and Knife Party and like Flux Pavilion and, you know, all those UKF people.
But yeah. I miss those YouTube channels and shit.
Oh man, yeah, they were great. But I think it was psytrance or like specifically progressive psytrance that made me want to write psytrance, because I really loved sound, but I shouldn't, this isn't me talking shit about the whole genre, but I wanted more from it, I guess. And so it was sort of like, well, it's very hard to actually find exactly what I want to hear from this genre. So I was like, well, I want to make it myself. And after that, I spent like 2 years, I think, on Fruity Loops, having no theoretical knowledge of how to synthesize or anything to do with anything aside from composition. But yeah, it wasn't until I went to SAE that actually, I wouldn't say I was a producer until I did the music production course, because yeah, up until that point, it was just twiddling knobs until I got the sound that I wanted. Yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, so that's what got me into it. Was psytrance, and not just psytrance. Like I always played music. I played guitar, and I was always into composing. I think when I realized that, you know, using a DAW, you can sort of compose in your bedroom without any obligation to any other musicians, and you can just sit there and you have unlimited creative potential. I went nuts. But yeah, I was initially funneled into writing psytrance, but you know, now I'm sort of breaking out, doing other things as well, which is fun. Yeah.
I think it's really good that you had like a grasp on composition before you started, because your tracks the sections seem to flow together quite naturally, and your music theory is on point. Like,
thanks, man.
Yeah.
I find it really helps. I'm really grateful that was the background that I came from. But you know, obviously people write music, especially electronic music, for so many different reasons. But for me, melodic composition is my focus. And I love the sort of sonic qualities available to me through electronic production.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I still want to write music like melodic music. But then, you know, there's a producer that makes psytrance that I know that like actively says that he's not interested in writing, you know, he doesn't even view it as music. It's just an exploration of sound, and that's totally valid as well. And that's amazing for so many other reasons.
Yeah. It's cool to think of it like that, because it opens up so many new experimental possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's my favorite thing about electronic music, is that we're getting whole like subgenres that are just like, you know, we're just really obsessed with like this particular sound, and we're just gonna explore that and push that to the absolute max. And it doesn't even need to be that melodic or you know, rooted in traditional music theory, which is really cool, I think.
Yeah.
Like there's some weird psytrance out there.
There's definitely some people out there who really are against it, but I think going forth, it's going to be the way, because you can only do the same chords so many times, the same melodies so many times, you know. But to go back to what you said earlier about like not shitting on the genre, but you wanted to see something different in it, I think that's kind of what a lot of artists think, like when they first start out. It's just like that's kind of the reason that people start creating, because they want to do something similar to what they know, but they just want to put their own spin on it, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Did you have that sort of sentiment when you started? Did you want to change the game? When
I first started, I was like, I didn't want to change the game. I just wanted to be like X and Y. But over time, I've, you know, developed like what I want to go for, and incorporating metal into dubstep. And I know there's a few people out there who do it, but I feel like I want to just do it my way. So yeah, that's kind of just my vision, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's cool, and that's actually interesting, because it's sort of like I've almost come the other way, where I started out and I was like, I want to make it all different, and now I'm just like, well, actually no, I just want to make my music. It doesn't matter if it's changing anything or if it's anything like that. It's just there's so many reasons to create music. It doesn't have to be just to create something new or innovative. It can just be to express yourself, I think.
So like I was saying, I really respect your composition and music knowledge of music theory. Do you have any advice for the producers out there who they feel like they've got good sound design, good mixing, but they're just kind of lacking in the theory knowledge?
Yeah. Learn theory. That's a really sit down and just, yeah, there's so many amazing online resources. Some of them are free as well for learning music theory. But that's not my only advice, because that can be really grueling. And
yeah,
it's like learning another language. It's insane. It's definitely, I learned it through several different guitar teachers, and it was just, they would just like drill this information into me and I wouldn't get it, and then just one day I would, and I still have a very basic grasp on a lot of the concepts. It's something I actually personally want to really, really study in the future. But I would say that listen to music that isn't the music that you make, especially if you're interested in making things with melodic content. Find lots of really melodic music and just listen to it. Saturate your brain and your psyche with that, with those kinds of music, and your brain will start to pick up the sensibilities, and just instinctively want to write like that. When I write a melody, it's almost like I hear it in my head as I'm doing it. I don't think that that's some like special gift I've got. I think that's just comes from all of the music I've listened to up until this point in my life.
Yeah.
My brain has just started to learn the patterns and learn what, according to those kinds of music, sounds good. Just listen to heaps of really melodic music. And that's sort of what's gotten me to the point where I'm at, I think.
Yeah, that's some really good advice, because sometimes I just have like weeks on end where I just listen to a bunch of heavy dubstep, and then it comes time to write a melody and I'm just chucking MIDI notes into Ableton, like, okay, does this work? No. Next one. Does that work? No. Next one. Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's really weird. It's a very important interplay between knowledge of music theory and just sort of, this understanding and having these musical concepts already like instinctively in your brain. Because I still get to the point where I'm just like, I know what I want to write, but I just can't. Like, I'll just be there like trying and erroring, and it'll just be like, this just sounds wrong, and and then other days it'll just flow out of me. But I think that there are obviously musicians out there who have such a wonderful grasp of music theory that they're just like, okay, like when they're not inspired, when they're not feeling the actual genuine inspiration, they have actual solid concepts to fall back on, and then they can use that as a framework to create something that they can then sort of add inspiration to. So it is really just the more music theory that you learn, the better musician you become.
Totally.
Yeah, but then, you know, the more sound design theory you learn, the better musician you become when it comes to creating things like dubstep or psytrance or, you know, anything sort of like EDM-y and heavy. I think that's the really interesting thing about EDM is that it's not just music theory at play anymore. There's so much more to it, and that's why you get people that can make an entire career just, you know, in a singular area of it.
Yeah,
you know,
just making sample packs and shit as well.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, to kind of add on to the theory thing, I think a lot of producers are resistant to learning theory because they're like, I can put notes in Ableton and it sounds good. But then I know, like, from firsthand experience, sometimes I'll put notes in Ableton and it won't sound good. And from learning just a little bit of theory, it's been easier to make things sound good. Like when I get stuck, I have a bit of theory to fall back on to kind of speed up the process. So for anyone who's resistant to learning theory out there, I'll definitely advise at least getting some of the basics down. Yeah, there's some really good YouTube people out there for it.
Absolutely. And yeah, I wish I had, like, off the top of my head could tell you other resources for it, but yeah, they're definitely out there. Yeah, lots of online courses and
yeah, I think
good stuff.
I can't remember the guy's YouTube channel, but I remember the adult piano practice plan, I think, something like that. It's just like a half an hour practice thing per day, but it helped me quite a bit.
Yeah. There's even resources for like ear training, because you can do like sort of more audio engineering ear training where you sort of learn how to identify certain frequencies and sort of like compressor attack times and reverb tails and stuff. But then you can also do sort of theoretical ear training. So you'll just, like, every day you'll be like, you'll listen to an interval and just eventually you'll start to just know that, like, oh yeah, that's a seventh, or that's a third. Just even that just speeds up your process so much.
I want to get there. That'd be so good.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, it's really important and it's good shit. Get onto it.
Hell yeah. So why don't we talk about your recent release, I Dream of Ambiguity? Like, what kind of, is there any artists or songs that inspired that specifically?
Yes and no. I think it's instinctively the way I write is a lot like that. But that's very much inspired by I mean, a lot of artists, but there's two psytrance artists that very much inspire me. Those are Smilk and Pterrafractal. They're both from Melbourne, I think, actually,
cool.
which is great. But every time people listen to my music, they'll be like, "Oh my god, like that sounds like Smilk, or that sounds like Pterrafractal," and it's like, "Yeah, cool, sick, thanks." Because they're both artists that do really melodic things with their psytrance, but it sort of psytrance isn't known super well for having like really emotive melodies. It's very trance driven, it's very groove and rhythm driven. So it's really interesting having like someone like Smilk, who I guess just breaks out of the box, breaks out of the mold with the way he writes his melodies, and does make these more beautiful, sort of soulful sounds in his music, and I really like that. So I definitely want to do a lot of that. And then Pterrafractal is he used to be a member of the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra, so he's just got like classical chops for days, and it's amazing. It's incredible music. It's like really orchestral, but just like hard driving psytrance. It's great. But then also Rival Consoles, who I mentioned earlier, he's a massive inspiration for everything that I make, because he does just so much with like analog synths, and I just love that. I love that synth sound, you know, those like really big sort of like wavy pad sounds.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's so exciting. I guess that I'm really into making music that just makes you feel things, and I'm also really into psytrance, so it's kind of like I'm trying to combine the two of them. Yeah, so that's kind of what I was trying to do with that, is just like keep this like really big ambient, dreamy, melodic feel, and then also combine it with some sort of like groovy, chunky, dancey elements as well.
I think it's a really good combination, because for me, like, I'm a homebody, like I just sit at home, right? So if I'm listening to psytrance at home, I'm like, this is kind of like too fast or too upbeat for me right now. Then if I'm listening to something that has like very little rhythm, I don't know, it doesn't really do anything for me. But you've combined like really melodic stuff with psytrance, and I think like I could actually listen to quite a bit of that stuff at home. Like it's just nice to listen to, and it has like a bit of a beat to keep you working or whatever you're doing on. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. I think that is actually a big thing with psytrance, because obviously I got into it through doofing, so dancing out in the bush to it. And that is my favorite way to experience it. But yeah, I find myself very rarely listening to it unless it is somebody who sort of breaks the mold a bit and tries to make it more musical for other reasons. Because like if you're just sitting, or if you're just driving even, and it's just sort of like rhythm and weird psychedelic noises, like definitely sometimes I'm in the mood for that, but that's better enjoyed sort of dancing. So I think what I'm trying to make is music that is enjoyed in all instances.
Totally. So yeah, I think there's a lot of good things that come from combining influences and genres, and just kind of trying to break the mold is really cool, because you explore new places and like you gain new listeners who wouldn't normally listen to the genre and such as myself.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, and your mix downs are fucking good as well. Like,
thanks. Honestly, that's still something I feel not entirely confident with. I had a lot of help with that track, actually. A good friend of mine, Gabe, who goes under Cyanor, he compiled the album, but he had me round, and he's like, all right, we're going to go through and we're going to mix this down. And so, he definitely showed me a lot with this track, which is great. I feel like my production really, really stepped up a level with making this track, which you'd hope so, because it took me a whole year to make, which is wrong. No one should ever spend a year on one piece of music.
It depends. Like, if you're working on it 8 hours a day, every day for a year, then definitely not. But if it's just like here and there, like, that's whatever. I've got tracks that I've had working in the works for like probably 2 years. I mean, the ones that have been in the works for that long, I don't know if they'll ever see the light of day, but there's definitely some that from like 6 months ago that I want to release. So
that's good. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's so weird, like going and working on a track that you started, like a whole year ago, and going back and having to like incorporate your new updated production techniques with your like old shitty ones, and like like going back and be like, I made this little pluck sound like a whole year ago. It sounds like garbage.
At this point, like I've got a really cool mixing template, so I think if I do that again, I'm just gonna go into the track, render all the stems, and then just put them into my mix template. I think it'll be much easier.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Do you have any templates or like any kind of specific processes that you go through when mixing?
No, and I need to. That's something I'm going to start doing now. Especially, I want to start smashing out music and that kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely need to make more templates, make things faster for myself. I guess it's really interesting with EDM because you definitely mix as you go.
Yeah.
It's so important, like for little things anyway. Like say if you're layering basses, you know, you want it to sound like how it's going to sound when you're making it. So obviously you cut your, you know, your mid-high sort of bass so it's not interacting with your sub bass and all of that stuff. And then by the time that you've done all of that, you've kind of on the way to having everything sort of mixed pretty happily. But I think that in terms of like a process, yeah, I definitely level as I go. I will have like a period at the end where I'll go through and just like adjust all the levels. I like to sort of incorporate some of the sensibilities I was taught in the audio degree. So, you know, they have sort of really good processes of like, you know, you start off, you get your metering right, you have everything leveled correctly, then go through an EQ and then compress and then EQ again, and then, you know, add reverbs and things like that. So I sort of follow that. I've been using a lot of multiband compression to sort of like, in a lot of ways I could just use an EQ, but I just find that if you're using multiband compression, it doesn't like permanently affect the whole sound. It's just like attenuating certain frequencies when they get too loud. And it just sort of like makes everything a lot tighter if you're just compressing it rather than just turning it down. So yeah, that was like my project was just so tanking by the end of that mix down for that track, because it's just like multiband compressors on every single track.
Oh god.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that, I don't know, mixing something that I'm about to put a lot of work into and a lot of hours into. So at the present moment, I wouldn't call myself the best source of information or inspiration when it comes to that side of things, unfortunately.
I think if you're gonna like make a template and stuff, the main thing is to not get too specific with it. Like my template is just groups and then routing pretty much, and I just have like a side chain set up automatically because that's annoying to do on every track.
Yeah. What do you use for your sidechain, by the way? This is something I want to ask every producer. I mean,
currently I'm just using the Live 8 compressor.
Okay. Yeah. Do you find...
Sorry, have you heard about that having less click than 9 and 10?
No, because this is my issue. This click is causing like phasing issues with my kick, and it's horrible. So the Live 8 compressor,
it's transparent as fuck.
How do you get that?
I can't remember how I got it. I'm pretty sure like just someone who still has Live 8 installed just uploaded the ADG file or whatever it is. But I can send it to you after this if you want.
That would be amazing. I would love that so much. Thank you. Sorry to derail that a bit. Yeah, what were you saying before that? You routing and sidechain group.
Yeah. So my
template.
I watched a video of this guy called Ahi. He does YouTube tutorials, and he just broke down like the Skrillex Show Tracks EP. You know how Skrillex like showed the project files for those 2 tracks?
I actually didn't know about that, but I'm definitely
it's fucking sick. Get to see inside Skrillex's project files. Pretty dope. God.
Yeah. Do you feel enlightened now?
Yeah.
After seeing that?
Basically, like any of the rules that were set, like it just teaches you that you don't necessarily need to follow them, because he just had like limiters everywhere, Camel Crusher going across the master.
Oh my god. Fuck, alright, well that makes me feel a lot better about my sessions.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So I've just got a template based on that, but like kind of personalized to my own needs. And it's doing pretty well. Like I'm able to achieve some good loudness quite transparently, which is good for the dubstep music.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Have you watched all like the frequent tutorials for the dubsteppy stuff as well?
I believe I've watched a lot, but not his most recent one or two, because he does them he's called frequent, but he does them pretty infrequently, right?
Yeah, he does. There's not heaps. I think I still haven't done all the Mr. Bill ones, which is ridiculous because obviously everyone has to do the Mr. Bill ones. But I think it's mostly just because there's so many. It's kind of overwhelming. Yeah. But yeah, no, frequent has some really good tutorials for just making insane sound design. Yeah, do you master your tracks?
I mean, these days, currently I'm trying not to quote unquote master my tracks because I always used to do it and I felt like it kind of didn't do the track justice. So right now all I'm doing is a bit of EQ on the master into a limiter and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, okay. That's fair enough. Yeah, I don't either. I think probably the most valuable part of mastering is having someone else's ears to just be a bit more brutal with it. And
I think, like you were saying, with mixing as you go in electronic music, you've pretty much already got it to sound how you want. So there's not really much need to master unless someone else is going to do it and provide a different perspective on it.
Yeah, absolutely. And God, you lose all objectivity when you're, mixing, even just like producing and then mixing your own music. It's just, it's so nice to have someone else come in and just be like, yeah, no, that's fine. It's way too bassy. Turn your sub down.
All right. So I think we've just about hit time. Is there anything
amazing?
Is there anything else you'd like to say to producers out there? Maybe like what's one piece of advice, maybe something you wish you knew right from the start?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm going to spend way too long trying to figure out the perfect answer to that. Something I wish I knew from the start.
I'll give you an example. For me, it's like
thank you.
I would pretty much just tell myself not to use a compressor until I know exactly what it does.
Yeah, okay, that's a really good, that's incredibly good advice. I think that that's actually good advice for everything. Don't use it if you don't know how to use it. I definitely remember somebody explaining to me how to do it, funnily enough, sort of how I should EQ everything, and me going home and just being like, all right, and just cutting the shit out of everything. And it just sounded so minced. So I think that, I think it'd be very similar to that, in that, like, don't learn the basic understandings of your tools before you start using too many. Learn how to use an EQ before you start using a multiband compressor. Learn how to synthesize on a subtractive sequencer before you start doing the fucking wavetable synthesis or additive synthesis. I would even say don't get any third-party plugins until you know how to use Operator and Analog and most of the Ableton ones, because there's so much with production. There's so much to learn, and if you just sort of like running around with all of these new toys, it makes it very hard to be very, very good at each thing. So I'd say teach yourself everything very methodically before you sort of start playing with really crazy versions.
Yeah.
Those things.
A lot of the time, these default plugins can do a lot of the stuff that the third-party plugins can. It might just be hidden, or you're just unaware of it or something.
Exactly. Yeah. It's amazing how many like things you see on online tutorials that you're just like, oh shit, I never knew that did that.
Like, for example, for the longest time, I didn't know that you could mid-side EQ with Ableton's EQ.
It's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. And also just like, yeah, don't over EQ everything. I think that's probably my main piece of advice. Don't cut out a massive frequency band just because you think you should. Definitely use your ears. Because it'll just, by the end of your track, everything will just sound like pieces of itself. And
I remember there was one track I did where I cut out like everything below 100 and like everything above 16K. And it just sounded like it was coming through a phone.
Would have sounded great through a phone speaker though, I bet.
True.
Would have gone so hard.
Oh man. All right.
Yeah, dope. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Dude, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being my first guest. I'm glad to start the podcast off with a bang.
Oh, thanks, man.
Do you want to give yourself a shout out? Like where can we find your music and your social media and stuff?
I'm on SoundCloud at just under Spiradical, but SPIRADICAL instead of SPO because the correct spelling was already taken. I'm also, I've just got a Facebook page and stuff. And now that new track that I released is on Spotify and all the streaming services and Bandcamp and stuff. It's a Universal Tribe Records compilation. There's a bunch of awesome artists on there. So, if you want to go and check that out, it's out there and it's great.
So that was I Dream of Ambiguity by Spiradical.
Yes. That was the track.
Dope.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks heaps, man. It's been really real.
It was great. Great talking to you again.
Likewise then.
Haven't been able to talk to many people.
I know, right? It's just nice to see friendly faces again.
All right. Cool.
All right, bro.
Thanks for watching, everyone. This was the Wavetable episode 1. I'm your host, Astroreign, signing out with guest Spiradical, aka Indigo. See you later.
See you later.